everyone. Happy Friday. I know today is gloomy, but I hope my show is going to brighten up your day. At least it's gloomy where I am. So thank you so much for tuning in to What's the Buzz. I'm your host, B. Silva. So in the first half of the show today, we're going to be talking a little bit about how Florida has slowly began to reopen. Then on the second half of the show, we're going to be meeting with Alec Rodriguez, a corporate recruiter. We're going to be talking about what has life been like in quarantine for both of us and how to land and search for that dream job. Now, everyone seems to be asking if South Florida is reopening too quickly, and if so, could the newly regained freedom backfire? The region started to allow public access to parks, marinas, and golf courses these last few weeks after many residents began begging for fresh air and exercise. Elsewhere in Florida, even some businesses started to slowly reopen to 50% capacity. Lifting restrictions is both a tough call for authorities at the epicenter of the COVID-19 outbreak and a test whether the public will follow social distancing and mask rules meant to slow down the coronavirus. Sadly, over the weekend, the public failed, at least in one place in Miami Beach. Just 5 days after reopening under loosened restrictions, the popular South Point Park has been shut down again as crowds flock to the beach. People also notice a surge of littering and face masks left on the ground. So a lot of people weren't happy about this. More than 7,300 warnings were issued for failure to wear a face mask, according to MBPD. More than 470 warnings were issued for failure to social distance, and more than 1,300 people were asked to leave parks after the park was already closed. So Miami-Dade continues to register as the highest death toll in the entire state. 378 deaths as of Monday, and almost a third of them were all confirmed COVID-19 cases. Florida Department of Health on Monday also confirmed 819 new cases of the disease. And as restaurants and shops across the state are reopening, we can kind of assume that there might be a second surge of coronavirus cases in the next few weeks. Florida is now close to hitting almost the 37,000 mark with a total of 36,897 confirmed COVID-19 cases. Monday's tally was the highest the state has seen since Friday, when a week-long trend of daily totals under 1,000 were broken. There were also 20 new deaths announced, bringing the statewide death toll to 1,399. More than half of the known COVID-19 cases are in South Florida's 3 counties, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. Nevertheless, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed off on executive order for Miami-Dade and Broward counties to reopen restaurants and other businesses deemed non-essential this coming Monday. The governor announced Thursday at a press conference in Doral. DeSantis indicated that he would authorize a 50 cap on capacity at Miami-Dade County restaurants, double the state's current 25% cap. Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos Gomez also said he would allow 50% of the threshold as he plans to lift COVID-19 closures on most businesses this coming Monday. Now, this means that restaurants are going to be reopening, barbershops, nail salons, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of excitement at first. I know we've been stuck in the house these last few weeks, but as Monday, I guess we'll wait and see if people are going to flock to these restaurants, flock to the barbershops, or are people going to take more of a slower pace to kind of slowly adapt themselves to the new norm. I wanted to also welcome Alex Rodriguez. I think he is signed on to the show now, and we're going to see what he thinks about all this craziness. Alex, welcome to What's the Buzz. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you, B, for having me on your show. I'm super excited to be here. You look ravishing.
So do you, my good sir.
Excellent. So yeah, I just heard your whole introduction, and honestly, as a resident of Miami, there's a lot to think about with these coming times. I saw Governor Ron DeSantis live speak yesterday about how he's granting the permission to go ahead and have these non-essential businesses reopen. And while the data does show that, we're in a comfortable state to do that, it now, as you said, relies on the people. It relies on, are we going to flock to these different areas, or are we going to take our time? And to be honest, from my perspective, it's going to be at a 50-50%. You're going to have those people who are dying to get out of the house. You can even have influencers who are dying to go to that restaurant that they've been waiting for. And you could even have some people who are dying to want to be part of history and say, you know what, I went to a restaurant post COVID-19. However, you're going to have the other 50% where they don't necessarily are ready to go out, and I think that's very respectable to it. I think we need that kind of balance in Miami.
And so, what are you thinking about doing? Are you the 50% that's dying to go out, or are you going to be more a little settled?
That's a great question. It really depends because it's going to have to depend on how comfortable I am in my mood. As you have talked about already with South Point Park and South Beach, as a lot of our generation says, people can't act. So, it really is, it's incredible because now if you're going to open up everything, again, you go back into that thinking of, are people going to flock to these areas? And so, from my perspective and my personal opinion, I think that I'm going to maybe wait it out. I want to see exactly with my local restaurants. I want to do a few drive-bys when I'm already on my way to the grocery store and just kind of peep in and see what it's like, because we also have to rely on the business itself because the businesses can open up, but they might not be following social distancing and they might have, tables that are going to be closer than 6 feet apart. And it's going to be very interesting. So I think I want to wait a little bit, feel it out, and then maybe, just maybe, take my own self to a restaurant first before inviting friends or anything of that nature, because just like many of you guys, I bet you have people that you love and that you do not want to have get this disease.
No, so true. But I know that you've been also doing your own thing. You're
Mhm.
the owner of Thick Boy Kitchen, along
Yes,
with
I.
being a corporate recruiter. So how do you balance the
Mhm.
life of businessman and then starting your own brand or Instagram page?
Yeah, so it can be a little bit of a challenge, because while it seems like something that can just be a hobby, which it is truly for me a hobby. It's not even about building myself and being a name out there. It's me doing something I love and being able to showcase some of my talents and my skills. And it can be a little bit challenging because you come home after work, you're tired, you're you don't want to cook, you just want to order Uber Eats or maybe make yourself some Cheerios, as my grandma says. But I find that, with working from home, it's a lot easier to have this kind of balance, right? Because if I got to put in a pulled pork roast at 12 p.m. when I can't do that because I'm not home, I can now do that. And dinner can be cooking away as I'm doing interviews and, answering emails and doing all of the other corporate activities that we all typically do throughout our day working from home. So it's been a great balance now, and I've really been able to focus on my critiques and my craft. It's actually been pretty rewarding for me these past few weeks. I'm sorry, these past few months. What day is it?
Right? Isn't that crazy? I'm like shocked. It's
Hmm.
literally been what, 3 months?
It's been about two and a
Or
half months. Yeah, I want to say. Yep.
that's so crazy.
From the.
I,
Hmm.
I feel like for me, like the first few weeks were the hardest, and then I'm starting to get used to living in
Hmm.
quarantine. And so now that when Ron DeSantis was like, "Okay, Monday we're going to be reopening things," I'm like, "Wait, what?" I feel like I needed a 2 week notice to mentally prepare myself.
Hmm.
Like I feel like
Exactly. That's what
I
I thought too. But I will say this in the details of the actual opening proposition. I mean, it's a huge document that I don't trust anyone to read, so I just kind of spark notes it and I went through it. So restaurants are actually going to open up on the 27th. On Monday,
oh,
they
okay.
can open up certain non-essential businesses, and I'm not sure if that includes barbershops and salons, but I believe those are going to open up on that Thursday. And so again, and then on the 27th is when they're going to go ahead and open up the rest of like the restaurants mainly. So it's kind of like we get a little bit of a 2 week notice, but
I
no,
know.
but everything else is like, no, bam, bam, yes, ma'am, we're opening, And what's crazy is that you
Right?
already know that some of our a little bit with their parks and marinas, but specifically in Miami, where I live in downtown, they said, no, ma'am, we are not opening up anything yet. So the fact that we're going to have like Margaret Pace Park open, which is a huge park over here, is going to be astonishing to me. Hmm.
And since you live, I know you live like right off of Biscayne Bay. And
Hmm.
so what does it like as you're like walking around, what are the streets looking like? Are they desolate or do you see people running? Like what does it look like down in Miami?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a massive change from about a month and a half ago when they finally implemented no parks and pretty much everything's going to be closed. Now it's a little bit of a ghost town, from what was to be jammed streets at 5 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and you have the party buses always going through Biscayne Boulevard. There's now none, and you got about two or three cars on the road. You can sometimes have more depending on maybe if it's dinner time or what have you, but the the ghost town it really is, you still see people though walking their dogs. There's a lot of people who are active on the street. It's almost like I compare it to like a really messed up video game where like there's a little error in the game, and like you see all these like random people working out on the sides, and it's like they should be working out in the gyms. So it's really interesting to be able to see these like different actions and people really trying to take up any kind of space they can be allowed to do whatever it is they please.
No,
So
it's crazy.
it's
Like myself, yeah, seeing like I started running a few weeks ago, and like I was the kind of person in high school, middle school, like a mile. I was the person that walked the mile. I did not
yeah.
do.
Hmm.
I was in theater. I never did sports, so like working
Hmm.
out
Yeah.
was never my forte. But recently,
Hmm.
I started running outside, and the amount of people I see, like I start to like recognize faces and dogs, and like I do my same route every other
Yes.
day. And like then I
Hmm.
see so many people exercising outside,
Hmm.
it's kind of comforting, even though we are 6 feet apart. It's like okay,
Hmm.
you know, a lot of people are taking to nature to fulfill their exercise
Hmm.
needs. It feels like you're a part of something. So shout
Yeah,
out to those people. But I wanted to
100%.
see, yeah, I remember you posted this thing on Instagram. It was so cool. You were on your balcony and
Hmm.
you were baking on pots. What was that
Yep.
about?
That was has to be one of the there are very few moments I think that I'm really gonna look back on at my time when I lived in Miami, and that had to have been one of them. So there was actually two different nights about that. So every night at around 8 o'clock for maybe a few weeks or so, everyone would get out on their balconies. I mean, I live right in between these high rises, so people would just get on their balconies and they're banging and they're screaming and they're all cheering for first responders and healthcare workers, and I thought that was just so magical to see. I mean, you hear about them, doing these things in New York. They have billboards, they have people all around the world. They're showing their support. But to be a part of it in a metropolitan area, I think is just something that's so rewarding. And then, a few nights later, they even had another thing I posted was that they had all the fire trucks doing like a little parade. And again, it was to thank the first responders and the healthcare workers right down Biscayne Boulevard. It was magical. It was something that you'd see at the end of a movie. It was like The Notebook only for Miami. So it was ridiculous. It was crazy. I felt this a love and just support and to be proud of my area. I really
I
felt
love
like
that. And did you like see like a Facebook post, or did you just like one night like you're sitting on the couch and you're like, what's that noise?
yeah.
Like how did
Yeah, that
you
was actually my favorite part. Yeah, I was watching RuPaul's Drag Race to be exact, and I was sitting on my couch, and my roommate was home, um, and I heard this like it was a very light at first, and I'm like, oh, maybe someone's getting into a fight outside. That's weird, and because that never really happens, and I'm like, it sounds weird, and then finally it's more and more and more. And I'm like, oh my god, this has to. I thought it was like the 4th of July, and I literally I sprung up my couch, ran to my balcony, and then again you hear an explosion of wow, of just beauty through noise, beauty through
that's
cheering. It
really
was breathtaking.
and like what are some things that you saw like were people were there like lights, were people like was everyone just like banging on a pan, or what were like the
Yeah,
different
so
aspects of it?
so the main thing you see was the people banging on their different pans. I really got to know my neighbors and the different types of pans and pots they have in their house. So, we saw a lot of that, a lot of people screaming. I was a screamer. And then you had some people playing music pretty loudly. And then you had these people doing these miniature music festivals. They had these random color lights going everywhere on the ceiling of their balconies, and you could just see them. They're twirling stuff. I mean, it was just depending on the floor and the room and the area, you had either a discoteca or you had like Rachel Ray going nuts in the kitchen with all the pots and the
Oh
pans.
my
It was
god,
insane.
that sounds so
It
much
was magical.
fun. How
It
long did it
was. It
go
was really,
for?
really about 20 minutes. It wasn't anything too crazy. I
Okay, so
wasn't
you
anything
weren't
too crazy.
I'm trying to go to bed now, guys. Put away the pots and pans and the
No,
discoteca.
I was like, someone's about to lip sync for their life on Drag Race, so I need everyone to please return to your homes. I want to see what the tea is. I'm ready. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. And so, what other things have you been like trying to keep busy with during quarantine, other than
Yeah.
fun happy hour Zooms with your friends?
Yes, those are my favorite, actually. My dear favorite. No, so it can be a challenge. What I first started off with, because there was a time when I actually wasn't working for about a week or two. I was transitioning into a new job, and it was a struggle. I was like, what does one do all day? But I take everything with a grain of salt because naturally, actually, even though I'm a very outgoing and fun person, and when I go out, it's a good time. I'm actually a homebody. So I'm like, wait a minute, I could really kind of live with this. So I started off with simple things: cleaning out everything in the kitchen, cleaning out everything in my room, redoing my room, moving things around, creating a new existence, I think is also the very key for this time. So you rearranging your room is, you're going to walk now into it, and it feels different, and it's supposed to feel different because this is a different time. And after all the cleaning was done, I was tired of cleaning, and I also even got tired of cooking for a little bit. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to order some papayons. That's how we say it in Miami. I was going to order some, and I'm done doing it. Finally, I thought, you know what? What else do I want to do? I started going through old photos. I started doing some exercises around the house, very minimal. And there was a lot of different things I started doing puzzles too. I did a Golden
Oh
Girls
my,
puzzle that was my favorite thing to do. And it's something that my grandma loves doing. And I never kind of clicked until I actually finished the puzzle. I looked at it and I'm like, wait a minute, this is something that my grandma used to do and that she used to love. And she's still around, but I'm very close to my grandmother, as you know. So this nostalgia, this not even nostalgic feel, I would say, this feeling of being like close with her, even though we're still so far away. She's about an hour away, so it can be a challenge to come and see her sometimes. But I felt like she was there with me, and I think that's something
that's
that I'm gonna really cherish.
I
Hmm.
love that. And once social distancing ends, maybe not in the near future, but maybe you guys can
Hmm.
do a puzzle together. That'd be so cute.
Yes, yes, I would love that too.
And so I also wanted to talk about, I know you're a corporate recruiter, and
Hmm.
me, I'm graduating into a pandemic, which is like crazy because crazy in so many ways, but also,
Hmm.
after graduation, you're looking for a job. And so how would
Hmm.
you, or what would you suggest to people out there who are looking for a job during a pandemic?
Excellent. That's a really great question, and I think that's going to be on a lot of people's minds, right? Because either people are in your situation, and then you also have people who are losing their jobs left and right. So I think that there's a lot of different things you can do. First things first, look at your resume, redo your resume, have a friend look over your resume, and you can really be able to have that time to sit down and digest and think to yourself, how do I want to represent myself to my future employer? So that's step one. You have to at least get your foundation involved. And the second step would be to go ahead and start looking around to see what's available. While we do believe that there's a pandemic and it can be difficult to find jobs, there are still going to be jobs out there. And there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to be starting off work from home. With my company, actually, I started working from home. I've never been in the office, but that's a separate story for a separate time. So you have to at least start looking and using your own keywords as to what you want to do. For someone, in your situation where you just graduated, it would be great to be able to speak to someone, especially even myself, who would be able to guide you through exactly what kinds of positions you should be looking for. And that's really going to depend on your skill set. It's going to be, how many years of experience do you have? What actual applications have you worked with before? Any computer skills that you may have as well. And after that, once you get the interview, it's really just kind of about shining in your interview and showing yourself. I'm a firm believer in, there's a million reasons why you won't get that call back. There's a million reasons why you won't get a job. But there's also, never going to be that perfect job. But there is going to be that human connection that you're going to make in those interviews. And I think that's what's going to really help you out into getting your dream career out of college, I think.
No, absolutely. And like you said, like trying to achieve that personal connection over Zoom, it has been
Hmm.
one of my hardest one of the hardest things for me. I've interviewed with a few companies this past few weeks, and
Mhm.
it's so different. It's like you're trying to do your first impression off of a Zoom meeting when you normally it's like a face to face handshake. So I noticed
Mhm.
like what's helped me is like calm my nerves a little bit before the interview, because we have the luxury of doing the interview at, in the home base, so like you
Mhm.
get to choose where you want to have your platform. Make sure you have like a nice backdrop, and just because
Mhm.
it's a Zoom interview doesn't mean that you should be wearing whatever. I really suggest for people to be
Exactly.
wearing like professional clothing, and please wear professional
Absolutely.
on the top and the bottom, because you never know when you gotta get up and you don't want business in the front,
Exactly.
not the bottom.
Yeah, party down south. Yeah, exactly. There's actually a very funny video going around that I can send you later of it's a four people on a business call, and he's like, and one of the guys says, "All right, I'll be right back." He thinks he turns his camera and his mic off, and he doesn't. He's like in front of his boss and his VPs, and he gets up and he's in his underwear, and they're like dying and they're trying to get his attention, but he actually like he muted himself so where he couldn't hear them, so they were screaming, and then they started calling. It was so funny, and it's again, you don't want that to be you. That is an
I
HR call
actually,
waiting to happen.
I actually had an
It's
embarrassing
funny.
moment, kind of like that, on an interview. So
Oh my
I
god.
my air conditioning wasn't working for like a week, and so I had technicians come out, and they were working on my AC. I thought it was going to be an hour, but they were working on it for like 5 hours, and I knew I had this
Mhm,
interview around 4 o'clock. So I messaged the
mhm,
guys. I was like, "Hey, I have an interview. I'll be doing it on my patio." I left the door open because they were coming back and forth into the inside unit and the
mhm,
outside unit. I was like, "Please, I
mhm.
need at least 30 minutes. Please, like I'm in an interview
Mhm.
right now." And so
Exactly.
they didn't bother me all day. Finally, I'm on the interview like this, and I hear this knocking on the door behind me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll ignore them. I'll ignore them. They slide the door open and they're like, we're all finished. We just need your signature. And with the recruiter, I was like, I
Yeah.
am so sorry. And I told her, I was like, I haven't had AC for the past 2 weeks, and my AC people finally came
Mhm,
one moment. I turned around and I signed the thing, and he was like, okay, bye. And so I was like really worried that that would like affect my
mhm,
chances of getting a job. But she actually offered me a
mhm.
position the next day. I turned it
Yes,
down just because,
exactly.
yeah, but I turned it
Mhm,
down just because it wasn't the right fit for me.
mhm,
Because I feel like I shouldn't take just the first job that is offered. I'm so lucky and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to interview. But for like my
mhm.
heart and soul, I know what like I want, and it just wasn't
Right.
the position of my dreams.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you're in that position to where, you have that opportunity to achieve that, then absolutely you're gonna have to go ahead and go forward with it. I mean, if it again, just because you get an offer for a job does not mean it's perfect. I've turned down a few job offers myself, and I mean, it's there. You have to see yourself being happy in this company. If you get bad vibes, if you see red flags, my personal opinion as a recruiter is don't go with it, because, every job, every position, they're looking for a specific type of person and sometimes a personality to match. And sometimes, they're going to want someone who's a little bit more aggressive. Sometimes they may want someone who's a little bit more reserved. It really depends on the opportunity. But going back to your point of embarrassing stories, I mean, what one really comforting thing to know during this time too is that recruiters like myself are typically now being a lot more realistic. We know you're home. We know it just like we have with our employees. We know they're home. We know that just like me, they're going to put in a pork roast at 12 in the afternoon. So we understand that. So as long as you also kind of set expectations, I think that's really a great also tool to use, especially with these interviews. Just say hi. I'm before I start this interview, I do have some people working on the AC. If it gets too loud, I'll move, but just let me know. And honestly, again, but the recruiter already knew that you had something going on, and I'm pretty sure we can all relate to having a broken AC. It's not
Oh my,
fun. A broken water heater. That's also really horrible. Happened to me.
yes. I have about 5 minutes left of the show, but I wanted to ask you, um, it just came to mind. So let's say I'm going to use myself as an example. Let's say I did get the offer with the job that of my dreams that I like. Should I negotiate my salary? If that's like my first big career
Mhm.
move,
Yeah.
or should I take what they give me?
That's a great, great, great question. So it really depends on the situation. It depends on a few factors. So if you think that they're offering you a compensation that really isn't just, it's not what you, even though it's your dream job, it's not something that's just, and you know, you can go ahead and I think it's still proper to negotiate. You can say, but and again, it doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to be anything negative, of course. You could just simply say, oh, I was kind of ideally looking to make X amount. Is there any way that you could possibly increase it, or if not, I would I would probably most likely be okay with the compensation you're offering because also if it's your dream job, you don't want to lose it. There have
Yes.
been only once in my life did I negotiate and then they said, "Oh no, we can't. I'm sorry," and then they just kind of like clicked away. That was also though a red flag. So to think about it is that if they are to click away and say, "Okay, we can't offer you that," now we're taking away our offer. We're going to give it to another candidate. That's a huge red flag. That means that that's not going to be your dream job because think about it now as if you were an employee and you didn't increase or something happened. They're going to say, "Oh, I'm sorry." You know, it really shows the character of a company, I think. So if it is your dream job, kind of to recap, and you don't feel like you're making an adequate amount, you can at least inquire. It doesn't hurt to at least inquire, but you should also rest assured them that this is a position you're really looking forward to. You think you can grow in this position, you can add a lot of value to this company. So you're willing to be flexible is a really good term to use. To be flexible.
I read something because I was like, I know that I'm actively interviewing with companies, and so I was trying to like perfect my terminology. And so I heard that you should be like, hey, I'm getting offers in the 40,000 range.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm willing to negotiate, but like, what's the correct phrasing I should
Exactly.
use?
Yeah, I think that, negotiate like when you use the term negotiate, it's a little bit of an older term now because we're going into 2020. We're going to have new different types of terminologies and business jargon that's going to be instilled in this new day and age, right? So when you say, I'm willing to negotiate, I feel like it's a little bit of an older term. Either again, there's different ways around it. You can say, I'm willing to be flexible. I'm willing to, even with saying like, oh, I have other job offers in the 40K range. You could even say something along the lines of, I have a pending offer right now, and they're offering me X amount. So you can say that this, but you say, however, again, it comes in with that, however, this is a position that I think that I can grow in. I was really impressed with your company, and I believe that I can add a lot of adding value to your company. And maybe if you still remember their company culture and a few other definitions, it's great to throw those in too. Just say, while I was meeting with for example, like for an HR position, I was meeting with the vice president of HR. I was able to build a connection with them, and I think that when we're going to be working on this project, I can add a lot of value to it. So that's why I'm looking also for a little bit of an increase in the current compensation you're offering. So, and typically recruiters are going to be transparent. And again, in my opinion, they're going to be typically transparent about them being able to offer you a little bit more or going back to their hiring manager, seeing what they can do. Because there's also just a really good thing to keep in the back of your mind too. There's a lot that goes into making an offer, right? Because you have to get that offer approved from compensation or your another HR representative that kind of handles or the finance department that handles the money, and then it goes into this 24-hour period sometimes of trying to alternate that as well. So it can be a little bit of time that you wait until you get another offer, but everything is very case by case. But don't be afraid to ask, but remind them too that you can be flexible. You're willing to be flexible, not you're ready to negotiate.
Alec, thank you so much for all your insight for me personally, and I'm sure for viewers as well. Before we
Mhm.
sign out, how can viewers find you? What's your Instagram page,
Yeah,
or what kind of info can you give us?
absolutely. So you can find me, my phone number. No, I'm just kidding. No, so you can go ahead and locate me on my Instagram. It's Thick Boy Kitchen, two C's, no K, THICCBOY Kitchen. Thick Boy Kitchen on Instagram, and then from there we can connect. You can see some recipes. I actually just made an amazing, I call it Miami style fish and chips with a little bit of avocado and cucumber salad, and it was delicious. I had it last night, so feel free to check that out. You can always reach out to me too as a corporate recruiter. I can answer any questions, even help you with your resume, and let's start a conversation.
Awesome. Thank you much, Alec. And viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a great day.
Good
Bye.
night.